So the other thing I want to talk about today, since we have you on here, is the coaching carousel is now heating up, right?
Oh, yeah, it's busy.
It's that time of year. We've already had huge moves. Joey McGuire left Cedar Hill to go to Baylor, along with David Wetzel from Reagan.
Yeah, Baylor's just raiding all the Texas high school coaches.
Yeah, and Sean Bell
apparently.
from Cedar Ridge. Yeah, Matt Rule, good moves. Everyone around remember he got hired, and everyone's like, well, he better hire some Texas high school football coaches. All he did was take 3 of the best right away.
He's like, come at me, bro.
That was cutthroat.
Yes.
That was pretty amazing. And we had it, Matt Rule, DCTF Live's own Matt Rule.
Yes.
We had him on the show, and it was, we immediately understood why they all wanted to work for him. It was pretty obvious. But I wanted to ask you some specifics about the coaching carousel, because no one knows it better than you other than coaches. And I feel like you can sort of shed some light on the industry itself and this whole process during the winter. So the first thing I'm curious about is, how did you get so plugged into the carousel? How did this whole thing evolve?
You know, when I was working at the old coach, part of their big deal was the U-Haul report.
Yeah.
And that became one of my responsibilities. So being the overachiever that I can be at times, I took that responsibility.
That's
really,
not my experience with you at all.
I know.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone that. But, you know, if I'm going to do this, I want to be the best at it. So I really tried to develop contacts with coaches, tried to really do research to get the information, going to as many games as I did, always trying to make sure I talk to the coaches, get their cell phone numbers, and a lot of times coaches, they're I hate to say this, they're kind of gossipers. They like to chat.
Well, I think most people are at heart. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they are. And so coaches are not any different than that. So they'll say, hey, I'm hearing this is going on. You know, might want to look into this.
Yeah.
And so I'll look into it, and sure enough, that job's come open. Or look on TASA website and see the different openings, and so. That's kind of how I got into it, and I like charts. You know, I like numbers and I like graphs, and so being able to build.
In your straight gig, there's a lot of charts and numbers.
There are. Yeah. So I get, building up, the tracking everything and keeping up with all that. It really became kind of a mini hobby and passion of mine, and I want to try to break as many as I can, because now I work for Dave Campbell's Texas Football. I want to make sure we have the breaking news and the breaking scoop. Never going to break all of them, because the local reporters do a great job on their own beats of breaking the news. But I think I break my fair share.
I think you do a fair amount, yeah.
And tracking it and keeping up with everything, who's going where, that kind of thing. Trying to keep updated lists, because those resources are something that coaches really appreciate. They want those lists of what all jobs are open, where are these guys going, is anybody in my district changing jobs, those kind of things. So that was really the biggest thing, that how I got involved in it and how I became so plugged in. It's just all about building relationships, I think. Just like in any profession, you build your relationships and take care of the coaches. Coaches, they're in a tough spot, especially when they're looking for jobs, because their kids find out, and just like in any profession, if I'm at my job and I'm interested in another job, well, it's okay for me to look for that other job, and try to better myself in my profession. It's not a big deal. But with coaches, them leaving impacts kids. So it becomes a really touchy situation. So trying to gain their trust and understand that, if they do leave, that they're not going to hear it from their kids. Won't hear it from me first. It's really important for coaches to have the chance to speak to their kids man to man and let them know that they're leaving, rather than their kids reading on Twitter from Matt Stepp. So I try to respect the coaches on those ends, and a lot of times I don't break the stories first, because I do respect the coaches and try to hold off on that. And if I lose a few breaking stories
to save some relationships,
then I'll do it.
It's worth it.
I'll do it, because in the end it'll benefit in the long run. I'll end up breaking more in the long run. So. It's a touchy situation for coaches. There's no doubt. There's not a lot of professions where, like, if you or me wanted to go look for another job, we can go look for another job and it's no big deal. But those guys, they look for another job, all of a sudden they're almost pariahs if it gets out in their community that they're looking. Then
it becomes a sticky situation very fast.
So it's a really unique situation for them. So we try to respect that as well. So.
In your experience, you've dealt with these guys a lot. We've talked with coaches all over the state, different levels. What do you think? What do you feel like the number one motivators are behind their moves? Why is it time to move on most of the time?
I think that the biggest motivator is they want to win.
Yeah.
And let's be honest. I mean, these guys are incredible competitors at heart, and they want to win. And sometimes these guys get in situations where they either can't win for whatever. There's reasons why guys can't win at certain places. Sometimes there's a lack of talent.
Right.
Sometimes guys just become stale.
Right.
Their message just becomes stale, and some places just need
that
to
happens
change.
at all levels of sports.
Yeah, some places just need a new voice and they need to change. You know, not saying the previous guy's a bad coach, the new guy's some wizard.
Right.
Just they need a new
Sometimes
message.
just shaking things up makes things better. Yeah.
You know, coaches they change jobs for a number of reasons. Number one, they want to win, but there's all kinds of other factors involved. I mean, you look at administrative support, teaching loads for their assistants. I mean, that's big now. As head coaches like to get to places where their assistants, especially their coordinators, have a lighter teaching load. Because in the end, if you look at the really competitive big school programs, especially those coordinators, either they're not teaching or they're teaching a lighter load.
Right.
And so those guys are able to do more on the football side because of that. So I think the teaching load and and having that flexibility with their coaches want to have good relationships with their administrators and have that flexibility. They want to have control. Another reason. That's why most coaches really seek out those single school ISD jobs.
Right.
Because if you're an AD, head football coach in a single school ISD, you have complete control over your feeders.
Right.
You have a lot more control and say so over what goes on in your program. Whereas if you're in a multi-school ISD, you could be sharing a feeder. You may not have complete control over your middle school coaches. Someone else may have control over that. So you could have I've heard horror stories of multi-school ISDs where guys at the middle school, they have coaches who just basically, you know, for whatever reason, are insubordinate.
Right.
They run their offense. They don't run what they run because this is my offense, and the head coach at the high school can't do anything about it. So those are awkward situations as well.
Okay.
You get some unique situations too. I've talked to coaches. You always get the head scratchers. Why is this coach going from a 6A program to a 4A program?
Right.
Sometimes coaches, you think they have kids.
Right.
And I've talked to several coaches who quote unquote moved down.
Right.
Because they wanted their kid to have the small school experience.
Right.
You know. There's one coach, I won't name his name, but he left. He was at a 6A program, went to a 4A program. He was like, my kid's a good player, but he's not good enough to play here.
Right.
He comes here, he can play, and he can play multiple sports.
Right.
And kind of get that full experience.
Right.
So that's another thing. They have families to think about as well.
For sure.
So there's always family considerations. It could be their kids. It could be their spouse.
Right.
So, the old saying, if mama's not happy, nobody's happy. If mama's
Which
not
you and
happy,
I are both familiar with.
Yes. If mama's not happy at the place that you're at, she wants to get closer to where she first. Sometimes coaches do that as well. So these guys are normal people. They have the same concerns that anyone else has. And I think obviously, goes without saying, pay.
Yeah, I was gonna say my next question for you was, obviously, someone offers us a raise, we're listening, right?
Yeah, no question.
You're worth what the market pays you. You and I are firm believers of that. Tepper as well. So, but does it bother you at all that I feel like 9 times out of 10, big coaching move, people go, why did he do it? And the immediate answer is, oh, well, the money. Mm-hmm. It's not always. I mean, from the way you're making it sound, there's a lot more factors into it than just the bank account at the end of the day.
No question. I mean, I've heard of coaches taking less money, leave jobs for less money because of certain factors, and also cost of living. On the surface, it may look like this guy is taking a pay cut, but in reality, his cost of living is so much cheaper.
Half over at this place than it would have been where it was.
That's a factor as well. There's no doubt money is a player. I mean, but I don't think money is the single driving. I mean, just I'm not gonna. I don't want to throw Fort Worth Diamond Hill under the bus, but Fort Worth Diamond Hill is open right now.
Right.
Okay. Coach Abernathy, great coach, retired.
Yeah.
Tough job.
Tough job. Yeah.
Fort Worth Diamond Hill offered Todd Peterman $300,000 a year to coach there. Yeah. I'm not sure he'd go. I mean, he might. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
But he's not going to win a state. He might win. The best you can do at Diamond Hill is 3-7 most years.
Right.
He might not take it. He might because it's $300,000, but that may be an absurd number. But let's say they offered him $180,000 a year.
Yeah,
probably wouldn't go. Right. So I think there's almost a sliding scale, just like with any job. You look at it and you're looking, okay, what are the pros, what are the cons? You got to weigh all that out.
Right. One more question I wanted to ask you before we close out today, and it ties into all of this. So I want to put a finer point on why a coach might leave a large 6A to go somewhere else from a day-to-day operations standpoint. Why, people ask Tom Westerberg, right? Why would you go from Allen you've got everything. You're the kings of Texas, to a 5A, Barbers Hill, where, okay, you've got the same amount of control, but things are a little different. And I'm not talking about him specifically, but there are coaches who make those moves, and it makes a lot more sense when you think about what they have to do day to day. And like I said, I'm not talking about Westerberg specifically, but it's a good example.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it appealing to coaches to go from an administrative standpoint? What do I have to do every day from maybe one of these bigger schools to a 5 or a 4A?
I think at a bigger school, like at a place like Allen, you're very disconnected.
Right.
Because it's such a big operation. It's almost like a mini corporation.
Right.
And you've got so many hands in the pot. You've got so many things to deal with, and you've got so many more kids under your watch that you almost have to have things delegated out because you're almost like a CEO in a lot of ways.
Right.
Or I think at a place like Barbers Hill, you're almost like the owner of a small business.
Right.
Your hand is in everything. You're touching and impacting every single kid that walks through that building. Whereas I think at Allen, I'm not sure Coach Westerberg impacts and touched. No shot at Coach Westerberg. It's just such a huge school.
Right.
I'm not sure he's able to really make an impact with every. I'm sure he tried.
Oh yeah.
But is he able to make an impact with every single kid that comes through that?
It has to be tough. There's no doubt.
Place like Barbers Hill, he's pretty sure he's gonna be able to have real personal interaction with the vast majority of his kids.
Right.
He's gonna be much more involved in the day-to-day grind of everything. And to some coaches, I think they like that challenge, and they like that these guys are control. That you have to be a little bit of a control freak to be a head football coach in the state of Texas. When you're at a place like Allen or the Woodlands, you're giving up a lot of that because it's such a big corporation and program. You just have to.
Right.
Whereas at a place like Barbers Hill, I think you can be much more involved in the grind and have your finger on the pulse of everything. I'm sure Coach Westerberg at Barbers Hill, I'm sure Allen, he didn't have any idea what was going on with his students, and it's such a big school, you lose track of everything when you have so many kids. I bet at Barbers Hill he knows pretty much, fourth period, my quarterback's in this class.
Right.
He probably knows a lot more about what's going on at Barbers Hill.
A little bit easier, at least, to keep tabs on those guys.
Yeah, so it's like he's running a small business, whereas the CEO of a large corporation.
Kept you long enough. One more question.
All right.
Three biggest jobs open right now, I think we agree, are Cedar Hill, Cedar Ridge, San Antonio, Reagan.
Yeah, I think for right now, those are probably the top three.
And we got this question, and we were debating this during state. Which is the most appealing? Slam dunk. It's got to be Cedar Hill, but explain to people why.
I think Cedar Hill's the best job. Number one, single school ISD.
Right.
Number two, you're going to have a chance to win pretty much every year. You're going to have a chance to win for a state championship. Number three, I think Cedar Hill's a beautiful place. Cedar Hill's if you've never been to Cedar Hill, it's different than the rest of the Metroplex.
Yeah.
There are hills there. It is. There is a reason it's called Cedar Hill because there are hills.
Yeah.
There's a lake there. It's very nice. There's lots of conveniences. It's a nice town to live in. Nice area. And the pay isn't great, but it's competitive. Right. You have competitive pay, and I think the fourth reason is underrated. Even though you're not the AD, you have a great AD to work for. Right. Gina Farmer is one of the best at working with football coaches. She's awesome. And I think a lot of coaches kind of fear not being the AD. I think in a place like Cedar Hill, you wouldn't have to worry about that.
You're a national spotlight program.
Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt. That is a place nationally that everyone's
if you have aspirations of maybe becoming a college coach, see Joey McGuire. Cedar Hill's a good place to do that. And guys like winning, and you can win at Cedar Hill.
Yeah. Now, don't want to slate the other two jobs. Why are the other two jobs good jobs?
Cedar Ridge, a lot of growth in Round Rock. They're kind of the new pro. They're kind of what Stony Point used to be.
Yeah.
Round Rock's a good district. The pay's not great.
Yeah.
That's one drawback, but I think from a talent standpoint, the administration's pretty good.
Sure.
Austin's a great place to live,
Obviously.
especially if you're a younger coach. You can kind of your family young families love Austin.
Yep.
If you can deal with the traffic, it's a little.
Being up in Round Rock you can avoid a lot of it.
You can avoid a lot of it, but I think from that perspective, it's a great job. You can go there, win right away, and you can kind of build traditions that are still fairly new. Mm-hmm. Reagan's a little more established program, a little more affluent area. San Antonio,
pay some great players over the years.
Great players. Yeah. Pay is really good. I think Wetzel was one of the highest paid coaches in San Antonio.
Okay.
So it's a great from that perspective. I think the AD Karen Funk does a good job. I think she's a pretty good AD to work for. It's it's a 7 high school district, so it's a bigger district.
Yeah.
But I think the relationship between the administration and the head football coach at the campus level is fairly good. San Antonio's a great town as well, and I think you've got a chance to win right away. The problem at Reagan is I don't know if you'll ever have enough talent to really
win it all.
To win big.
Yeah.
I think Cedar Ridge potentially could, and Cedar Hill obviously does. I think Reagan, that's the one drawback, is you can win in San Antonio, and you can maybe get, good year, get 3 or 4 deep, but I don't know if you can ever break through and win a state title at Reagan. At least not right now, the way things are constructed.